Today I am doing a super simple layout. Like, it is so simple. I'm tracing a plate. Okay, went to the kitchen, got a plate. I don't have a tool for doing giant circles, so I figured I would use what you probably have in your house, which is a dinner plate. So all I've done is traced a circle. I have gone through before this and I have die cut out some leaves. You can see them to the side there. It's a KAISERCRAFT die, and I have to be honest, every single time I use that die, I struggled to get the pieces out. I even used the quick release paper. I even have that, and to get them out of this die, it's like it's too deep or something. It does my head in. I like the leaves, but to be honest, that particular die, compared to, okay, I'll tell you, compared to the paper rose dies, compared to, believe it or not, even the cheap ones from Amazon, like, they are all fantastic. This one does my head in, but I will link it, and maybe it's just user error. I don't know. So I'm creating I started off with white cardstock, and I am literally just blending out a few colors. Now, these are Distress Oxides. When it comes to blendability, oxides are my go-to because Distress inks, they're a dye-based ink and they dry really quickly. So it's very hard. It's not impossible, but it's harder to get a nice smooth gradient. Whereas with the, I speed it right up here because, you know, I'm blending, but it's harder to get them to blend. With the Distress Oxides, the difference is it's a pigment and dye-based ink. So the pigment ink actually stays wetter longer. Pigment ink is what you usually would lean to if you want to stamp something and then put some embossing powder over it. It stays a little bit wetter longer so that you can actually go through that process and get it done. Now, as you can see, I'm not the world's best blender. Look, I'm really not. I give it a crack. Sometimes it looks really good. Sometimes it's a bit clunky, a bit patchy, but I'll be honest, I've bought these Distress Oxides. I haven't re-inked them at all. I mean, I've only had them 12 months, but I probably use my inks more than most people do. So it is something that I will have to consider down the track to get them juicier. The juicier your ink pad, the more ink transfer you're going to get, and therefore your blending is going to be better. So this is the trick that I've found. So you put your base color down and then you come back over the top with your next color down. That's how I do it. Now, the colors that I've used, I started off with Dusty Concord, then I went to KITSCH Flamingo, then Carved Pumpkin, and then Wild Honey. So I'm pretty much, as you can see the photo there, I'm trying to sort of have a very loose interpretation of a sunset. Like, it's a very loose These colors, I wanted sort of the colors to be brighter than what you would normally see in a sunset. And yeah, so I really enjoyed doing this. Now, I do have a post-it note on my hand for a reason, because the ink stays wet longer, if you touch it with your fingers, you're going to lift it off. So I was really happy with that. I really was. Going from the purple to the pink to the orange. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm adding some splatters. Very specifically, these colors are not the matching Distress. These are Distress Oxide sprays, and I'm specifically not using the same colors that match. I wanted it to be slightly different. Can you see that giant splotch? Don't worry about it. Muzzle tough, don't stress. Yes, it's a mistake. No, I didn't want it that big, but I'll cover it up. Don't panic. So the sprays that I used, so the pink, I went over that with Worn Lipstick. So it's KITSCH Flamingo on the bottom and Worn Lipstick on top. That gives you a slightly different color. So it'll stand out a little bit, but not to the point that it's black and white. Do you know what I mean? The wild honey, I did use wild honey in the in my sprinkles, in my oxide sprays. I also used mustard seed. Now, mustard seed I used over the orange part, and then, which was my carved pumpkin. So I used mustard seed there, and then I used wild honey over. Is that what I did? No. I did mustard seed over the wild honey, and I did wild honey over the. Oh, I don't know. I'm waffling. Okay, so you can see that there's a little bit of a difference there, and you can see slight sprinkles. Now, could I have chucked this on my Cricut and cut a circle perfectly? Yes, I could have. But you know what? I'm all about showing you guys that you don't necessarily always need all the tools. You can do this with a dinner plate. If you don't have this distress tool, use the edge of your scissors. Now, a lot of people say open your scissors up and use the inside of them. I don't do that. I have a pair of fine cutting scissors, and I use the outside edge because, to my way of thinking, if you're using the inside blade, you're going to cut into the paper. So, and you're going to blunt your scissors, and that's a lose-lose in my opinion. So then I just bring in my trimmer. I love this trimmer. This is my new one. This is the POSCA's trimmer, but it's got the wider base on it. So I used to use the one with the thinner base, and I struggled to get my lines perfect every time, and I really struggled with it. So bought this one. It's got a longer what do you call it? So along the edge where you butt your paper up to. The other one was only 3 inches. This one is 6 inches. So you can push your paper up against it, and you can hold it a lot steadier, and you get a much more even cut. I know this cutter is a little bit more expensive, but if you're just setting up, I know that the cheaper one makes you feel sort of like, well, I can get a trimmer and it's only going to be this much. Believe me, you will love, if you get the newer one, you will love it. Not that it's not a newer one, it's just the wider one, because you get more precision with your cuts. That's just my take on it. And yeah, so I've cut my circle out of the center. Now this technique is called the spotlight technique, okay, where you create a background and then you contrast in the center of it. It's called the spotlight technique because it draws your attention to the center of it, or off to one side, or whatever. Wherever you put the circle, the spotlight, so to speak, that's where you focus. That's your spotlight. So what I'm using here is my Xyron. It is a 2.5 inch sticker maker. So I don't use this very often. Mine clunks and groans like an old woman, and believe me, my husband, I'll actually laugh. I've got to tell you, I was using it, and my husband was in the lounge room, and he's gone, "What is that noise? What are you breaking?" I said, "Oh, I'm not breaking anything. It's just he goes, "You know, that's like not a good sound." And I went, "Yeah, I know it's not a good sound, but it's what this machine has always done." It does my head in. And he's like, "Okay, let me know when you need to buy a new one of them." And I've got the little cross ones. I've got 2 of those. They're 1.5 inch. But basically what you do, if you don't have one of these, or if you've never seen one of these, as you can see, you put your die cut through it, and when it pulls out the other side, it's a sticker underneath. It's like black magic, let me tell you. It's fantastic. It's great, especially if, for example, in this situation, because the background is all Distress Oxide, okay? If I was to use wet glue on that, and if I needed to reposition it at all, you're gonna, by wetting the oxide, you're going to activate it, and yeah, it's not ideal. Sorry if you can hear the sirens in the background. I have the window open today because Queensland has finally decided that it's autumn. And it's only, I think it's about 20 degrees at the moment. 22, I tell a lie. 22 degrees. Absolute perfection for me. So it's at this point that I go around the edge, and you can see what I'm doing. Now, I left these complete, like, total white contrast. I didn't want them, I wanted them to stand out. I wanted the leaves to be bold, just to create an eye-catching pattern in the background, but only on the spotlight. Does it make sense? So it's a 4x6 photo. It's just one of this. I managed to capture sunsets all the time, and I absolutely love them. And that's why I like to scrap them, because, you know, they're beautiful. They're stunning. I absolutely love them. Now, this particular tape that I've got in my Xyron is a repositionable tape. So if you can see me lifting it up there, that's because it's repositionable. Now I'm going to come in with a bit of glue and make sure these are permanent and they're not going to lift off. So, but I only use the tiniest dot. Now, if you use art glitter glue, I did have, Gail actually asked me the other day if I notice if it's quite runny. Now, I find that it is runny, but as you can see, I'm just tipping the bottle up. I'm not squeezing it at all. So you get the tiniest little dot, and believe me, that glue is so strong. You don't need a big, sometimes I go ridiculously crazy with it and I squeeze so much on. You don't need to use that much of that particular glue. Now, here comes my mistake of the day. One, I dropped that blob, but I've covered that up with the leaves. But this is my next mistake of the day. I'm raising up the foam. Okay, so my spotlight is slightly elevated. Didn't make it huge and over the top, but I decided that I would raise it up. But have a look. I glued it down, and I didn't actually line up the purple line and the pink line and the orange. Like, it needed to twist ever so slightly to the left, and it would have been right. But you know what? Once the photo goes on top, it's not super noticeable. Now, I was going to cut out a title on my Cricut, and then I went, no, I haven't used stickers for a little bit. I try to, when I create a layout like this particular one, what I'm showing you is you don't need all the tools. If you don't have a Cricut, don't have FOMO about it. You know, if you don't know what FOMO is, fear of missing out, you scrap with what you have available to you and that you can afford, because this hobby it can be insanely expensive. And to my way of thinking, I would rather, you know, like once you're a couple of years down the track and you decide, you know what, and you make the decision, you'll never look back. Like, trust me, when you get an electronic cutting machine, you will never look back. They are amazing. I love them. But if you don't have it and you only have a manual die cut machine, because that's what your budget allows for, you can create beautiful layouts as well. Now, I do have lettering dies, and I don't use them anywhere nearly enough to justify the money that I have spent on them, mainly because I produce a lot of video content, and the amount of, I like to give you a varied look. So this particular one, I use thickers, and they're called hardcover, and they work beautifully. And I'm trying to add, so if you can see now, this is something else I wanted to draw your attention to. So I've got the black border, the black letters, and the black border around the photo, right? So that's 3 times you're seeing the black. Purple, you're seeing the purple around the border. You're seeing the purple in the circle. So it technically reads as a second hit of purple. And then you got the purple in the photo. So when you're looking at these things, it's important to, how do I explain this? The rule of 3, a lot of people run with the rule of 3, and there's a reason why you hear people talking about it. The reason being is because to the human eye, a set of 3 on a layout is pleasing to the eye. And that's why we use 3 of things, whether that's 3 black lines, whether that's 3, the border, the stickers, the, you know, all of that, it's because it's pleasing to the eye. And that's what such a simple layout like this, it is so simple, but it's pleasing to the eye because it's got those rules of 3. You're repeating that, the color. Now I'm going over this with a gold Posca paint pen, and the reason I'm doing that is because I have no metallic on the page, but I have added some little bits of bling. So they're just teeny tiny little diamantes, and they essentially are the stars. So if you look at them and they're gleaming, that's kind of where my head was going with it. Now I did consider going around the leaves with the gold, and then I went, no, stop. That is not what your idea was. Now just stop. So sometimes even I have to stop myself because I just go too far. And then I remembered I wanted to put glitter on them. So I didn't want to color them, but I did want to add shine to them. I didn't want this to look too flat. There's not a lot of dimension other than the foam behind the circle. So I pulled out my Uniquely Creative sparkle brush, and it's pretty much, look, it's like Wink of Stella. It's, you know, you use what you have in your arsenal of crafty stuff. I have this one. I absolutely love it. It's like a white, it's a clear shimmer, and it's like a clear mica paste, mica shimmer. It's beautiful. Okay, so here's my little plug while I show you up close and personal. If you're watching my channel and you have not subscribed, I would love you to either subscribe, leave me a comment, like my channel, share my channel, all of those good things, because we are less than 100 subscribers away to having an awesome cash giveaway. So thank you so much for watching. I genuinely appreciate it, and I will chat to you again soon. Bye for now, guys.